Alright guys, Scrappy again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. One of the most important days in the history of the competitive Call of Duty League. The team, the trio, the duo that has been terrorizing this league in many respects for the last 6 years may have met their demise today after escaping versus Omit yesterday. Today, they were not so lucky, getting knocked out of the tournament in 12th place in the group stages by a challengers team. Surely this team cannot survive this moment. What therefore next for FaZe and for the rest of the teams still in the tournament, because we have a bracket on our hands this weekend and it will not feature the team that won the first 2 tournaments of the season. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. We have, as always, rather a lot of series to discuss, and we are going to start here. Henry, the man who did not attend this tournament because they dropped him. Team Orchid got rid of Henry and brought in Beans. Now, we were talking about this on the pre-show today with Trey. He was like, if he was Beans, he wouldn't have even taken this offer, right? Because Beans was on Toronto. When Beans was dropped off Toronto and they brought in aBeZy, his stock was still kind of high. I think that Beans was okay this season. He was not really good nor bad. But after the Mercules drama, he definitely regressed. But after he was dropped, the general community consensus was that Toronto dropped the wrong AR and they should have got rid of Insight instead. I was kind of more 50-50 on the matter. I understand why they did what they did, but Beans' stock among the community was still pretty good. He joins this team that already has, slow players, really. I mean, Harry's like a kind of a slowish AR. Mythics is kind of an AR. Like, is Bance meant to be your fastest player? Like, I didn't really understand the decision on some level, especially because Beans is a fastish AR, but he's not exactly a, rapid SMG player. So anyway, they made the move. They got rid of Henry. They brought in Beans, and Henry now watches on from home and says, the grass ain't greener when you're in the desert. Bance may also be calling it a day for his career after this series. If he, if this is the final match that he ever plays in Call of Duty, then an absolutely legendary career, and so commendable that he was able to keep it going on a competitive level this long. But yeah, they do in the end lose the series. They went down to Gentamates 3-1. They just got piss slammed in the respawns, really. Game 1, they actually kind of had a chance at a point. I mean, you can see early on here it was actually pretty competitive, but then Beans just got absolutely slammed. He had a 0.5 game 1. So there was lots to talk about this, really, right? Because they dropped Harry or had dropped Henry for Beans. Beans comes in, and for the rest of the series, it wasn't as bad, but it was still pretty bad. And then the map 4 in the end was pretty much even, but the rest of the guys got slammed, and Kismet had a 1.4, Lunarz had a 1.5, and, this map was not close at all. So Team Orchid, they bow out of the tournament. Gentamates resume. What does it mean for Beans' stock in the off-season? I think that's a bit of a question mark, I will say now, based on this. Now, Falcons, they actually got a series win, and they might have got 2. They played Team War to start out the day. Here was Xnid licking his lips at the prospect of crushing the key, and it was a pretty spectacular crush of the key at that, where it just popped open at the last second. So Team War go down, and after this series, Adam Assault decided to call it a day as well. So losing to big names in Call of Duty today, 2018 World Champion and MVP, let's not forget at the time, kept his career going for quite some time, played this tournament, and seemingly, you never know with these COD pros, because sometimes they retire and then they come back, you know how it goes. But Assault deciding to call it a day after the World Cup. They got 3-0'd by the Falcons. I will say this was an objectively hilarious series to watch because of just watching Pred Zara on the minimap. And I was talking about it with Trey on the show as well, on the watch party that we did for the first series or so. That Pred, it's incredibly blatant the way that Pred plays the game, right? He is so shameless in his approach to playing for kills that you've got to respect it on some level. And clearly the team knows that's what he's doing. For this series, it was so outrageous. Like moments on Hacienda when instead of going in first, he would literally just take the route so that he could get a free kill from the back end. It's going to work against Team War because that team was dysfunctional. Bink came in as the sub from their coaching staff. It was never going to work out, was it really, for Team War? So you can get away with Pred in that scenario, farming some kills and putting up a 1.6. And, Pred also does have impact as well, but the issue is you can't play like that against the top teams. And not to say they played a top team next up. I don't think Boston are a top team. They were, top 3 at the World Championship, but they're still not the most compelling roster ever. But you can't get away with that 2 times in a row. So that's pretty much what happened. Falcons got the first win, and then we got Omit knocking out the Omit Brooklyn team. I will say, omit, I hope that they continue to do some damage here in this group, because it's going to be on for the rest of the tournaments, because really exciting team to watch. Love to see how Mac and Vivid especially have had a bit of a comeback. But, you know, on paper, you look at Mac and Vivid and you think, well, you know, they're unlikely to be dropping 1.2s. So you need that from Craze and Number, and they're delivering, right? Like, it's so impressive. But Omit, Brooklyn, Standy and co, they actually won the game one. Before then, the Omit team, so it's Project 7 here, but they were Omit Brooklyn when they played each other in the Challenge Championship Grand Final. And as I say, you know, Mac and Vivid aren't going to drop 1.2s, or Mac did this series, he had a 1.25, Mamba with a 1.2, Craze with a 1.15, Standy, Yuli, Prolute, all in the negative, Brat goes positive, doesn't matter. Yeah, they won the Hass heat, but after that it was pretty clear cut. But just to say that it's not like Omit were absolutely piss slamming everyone, right? Like, it's not like they came in against, because they 4-0'd this team in Challengers Champs Grand Finals. You know, they 3-1 them here, right? And it was clean, but it wasn't incredibly dominant. So it doesn't strike me that Omit are literally the best thing on the planet right now. They may go on to have a great tournament. If they do, does that change the way that FaZe feel about things? Possibly. But the point I'm trying to make is it's not like Omit have been playing unbelievable, untouchable cards. It's, you know, the reality is that FaZe lost to a Challengers team today. Now, another important series, before we get to that one, was Ghosty. So we know that yesterday there was lots of drama, 100 Thieves, Ghosty was giving his thoughts on Neptune hitting a snake and all this, and Blaze, fair play to him, asks the serious question, and Ghosty was in the replies and saying, yeah, like, as far as he was concerned, there was lots of snaking. He tweeted a clip out that Beans had put together from the stair glitch that seems to be GA'd on the rewind. Then there was another clip that he mentioned on the Hacienda, and Neptune tweeted out to say that that wasn't really snaking, he was just crouching up and down. And yeah, at the end of the day, it's pretty cheese, right? The way the snaking rules work, we know that the pros, they implement their own rules. They're very difficult to actually justify, because, you know, if I crouch up and down, technically I've not snaked you, but I mean, really, I've done the same thing, but technically, because I've not gone prone, it's not really a snake. So I understand Ghosty's frustration. I think I'd be frustrated too as a player trying to enforce this stuff. The point that I was making is, like, at the end of the day, you got to focus on yourself, right? Like, you can clown the other team and, you know, roast them or whatever, but at the end of the day, got to look internally. And yesterday they lost 6-2 map 5, and that wasn't because there was some stair glitch going on rewinds that didn't get any kills anyway, right? So, you know, whatever you think about the punishments and the implications and all this, I definitely think that the players have to keep looking internally and saying, okay, well, how can I improve? How can we improve? And maybe that improvement is just throw the GAs out the window. And if you do that, then okay, whatever, I'll be here for it, because it'll be some serious drama. This was a classic scoreboard. Diamond Con, Lunarz, Johnny in the negative heavily. Kismet was trying his best, although Gataga might have some things to say about that. And 100 Thieves took them down 3-1. Gentlemates did actually win the control in the end, which is pretty rare given how good Thieves have been in that mode this year. But both of the hard points were absolute demolition jobs. 250 to 80, 250 to 120 roughly. And over the course of the series, Scrap, HyDra, Ghosty all in the 1.2. Diamond Con with a 0.7. Tough series for him. Difficult weekends that he had for sure for that Gentlemates roster. But, okay, Thieves advanced through, and what that does mean is that they will play OpTic in the first round tomorrow. So that is the crucial thing, really, to say outside of the FaZe drama, is that we are going to get this match. Now, Thieves are the underdogs in the series, right? OpTic are on an undefeated run. They just won the World Championship. But I do think Thieves are playing some better stuff. I think they're warming up into the tournament. You can never count this team out. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. We'll talk about it tomorrow morning, of course. I think this series is 60-40 OpTic, but I don't think it's going to be incredibly clear-cut. I think Thieves are playing better stuff than they did at Champs, and they're always going to be a serious threat, but, you know, OpTic are for sure going to be the favourites, given the state of this tournament and the way that things have been looking recently. One team, though, of course, that aren't the favourites, it's Atlanta FaZe, because they aren't in the tournament any longer, and they might well need some replacements. Now, is it going to be FaZe Exceed? Unlikely, but to be fair to Five Fears, they started to make some noise today, and they played G2. And the funny thing is that we're going to talk so much about FaZe that really the G2 conversation has been thrown out the window to some extent, because they went game 5 with Five Fears and they lost. And, you know, Exceed was standing up, talking all kinds of trash, and fair play. Like, honestly, I think Exceed in his comments, like, you know, after the game was really, like, kind of humble and respectful of the situation. Look, we know that Exceed gets clowned on because he is the player on challenges who you know, he talks the most about expanding the league and getting opportunities back in the league. And when he's had those opportunities, it hasn't really gone to plan. But fair play to him. He's put his head down. He's worked hard with his team and he's come out firing. And I mean, to beat G2 in a game 5 today, look, it says a lot about these guys, Exceed and Co, but also it says a damn lot about G2. Like, what an absolutely shambolic team Rocker were this season. The funny thing is, they were genuinely better with Paul-X. Like, I actually do believe that. You know, Estriel and Geo were better players when Paul-X was around. Kenny was better individually than Paul-X was. Like, I think there's not much denying that. So whether you blame Kenny for their downfall or whether you think that was an inevitable regression from those players and this was always going to happen, but like, wow. You know, and Rocker deserved to get clowned, right? Because, and Nixie was doing the clowning. This guy said that at the Ultra 10K that they put on a week before the World Championship, they played them on a dealership search, they beat them. Let's not forget, by the way, Rocker lost to Exceed's team there, and then they refused to play the next day. I don't even know if they said anything, but they literally forfeited the tournament and they pulled out of it. And then Exceed is saying that now, a month and a bit later, they've turned up to this tournament and ran the same exact strats on dealership that they ran then and have got smoked on it. So, you know, that tells me everything you need to know about how deserving Rocker were this year of losing in the way that they did, respectfully. And as Kenny says, it's absolutely comical. GG's ends the year. Appreciate the support. And I would talk in more detail about Kenny's future, the future of Rocker, what's going to happen next. But we have other teams to talk about that are on the verge of absolute collapse. Fight with a 1.2, Estriel, Kenny, whatever. It was a tough time. And they bomb out of the tournament, losing both hardpoints in the series in pretty embarrassing fashion. Before we get to the FaZe stuff, this was Falcons bombing out of the tournament as well. We know that they had mega fan base, right? I mean, the fans in the venue earlier in the day was fantastic to watch. And it was cool to see them at least get the support for a win. The problem is, when you play a competent team, you can't play like that. And, you know, we saw that here, right? This is Pred and TJ. The hilarious thing about this clip is, right, that TJ is his duo, as it were, and he's brought him into the team. He's like, oh yeah, TJ, I'll sort you out, I'll get you the bag or whatever. Come over to Falcons, play the tournament. He's 0-7 map 5, and you know, Pred baits him so hard. I don't even think Pred's play is like that egregious. I just think that the reason why people are clowning this play is because it just sums up the way that Pred plays COD in this series and plays COD in general. I actually think his play, you know, isn't, what he tries to do here isn't terrible. It's just the fact that he just blatantly baits TJ so hard and then loses the gunfight and then gets hidden into the corner and Snoopy just smokes them both. So it's just a hilarious clip to watch, really. You can't really play it like this, and it's, as I say, indicative of a wider issue with the way that I think Pred and Falcons are approaching the game. But it's not Pred's fault that TJ dropped a donut map 5, so it is what it is. And what next for the Falcons? I mean, a very good question there. As Clay says, obviously he's frustrated because he was doing a bit of chirping after game 1, and then they went to a game 5, and they eventually go down to Boston Breach. So, yeah, this was the result. If it wants to load for me, yeah, there you go. So Boston just took the 3-2 dub. They won the red card, Falcons. They lost the Hacienda in the end. They split the next 2 maps. But again, it was the search and destroy. And look, if you're going to try and make a run at a tourney like this, your search has to be good. You can't afford it not to be. Xnib with a 0.8, that will be kind of telling there. I know that Pred drops a 1.2 and people are going to question the playstyle, but on Xnid's side, you know, I think Falcons would want to keep a Saudi player on the team, but I don't know. I think the off-season, especially in our FaZe are available, is going to get very compelling indeed. But let's get into it, right? Because FaZe played Omid. We saw them play yesterday and Omid squandered massively. So I thought, okay, today, this is Omid's chance, right? And Numbers said it, right? Literally, they said it. That, yeah, we squandered it yesterday. We bottled it bad. We're not going to make that mistake again. They earned the right back to play FaZe again in the groups, get the rematch that they wanted, which is why I do like this GSL-style group format. And game 1, FaZe did the same thing again. They bring a nice comeback. I mean, they had a good comeback opportunity here. But, like, in this position, look at the minimap, right? Like, it should not be possible to lose this rotation if you're FaZe. I know you've got to break in, but they get 3 dead. But they just all, like, because they all crunched in on it, they spawned out. And number 7 spawned out, and all of a sudden, the Omid guys are spawning in the back, and they don't make the mistake, right? Simp tries to get in the front, but he goes down, and they hold it nicely from the back. And that was GG. So, FaZe messed up that one again. This was the control. Like, this was genuinely when I knew that it was over. Because yesterday, the protocol control was like, wow, they just got 3-0 smoke showed by Omid in control. That's remarkable. And yet, the same thing happened here. Like, FaZe got 1 really nice offensive round, but 2 offensive rounds that Omid had were just so clean, it was amazing. They just put FaZe in the complete blender, and I'm like, you don't see that FaZe team doing these type of things, especially because FaZe as a team are typically so difficult to beat. They look like such a coherent unit. I know that I've been criticizing their communication for years, and I think after what I heard this tournament, very justifiably so in hindsight. But look, dynasties don't last forever. Whether you consider FaZe a dynasty or not, I think it was certainly the FaZe era over the last few years. They were always the scariest team of the tournament, that you could only be confident that your team was going to win once they were eliminated. And that was the case for a very long time, and they won plenty of championships and certainly made plenty of Sundays and plenty of finals along the way. And to have any 5-6 year stretch in any sport, let alone esports, where you're dominant on that level is incredibly commendable. But I think after the result today, there is simply no way that they can keep it together, and also simply no way that they want to. I just don't think that they didn't look to me like they wanted to play together this tournament. And omit capitalized massively. Craze had a mega result. They eventually, I mean, this is a red card hardpoint, right? This is Drazah and FaZe's bread and butter. And omit, just take them to school on it, really. Craze, Mamba, the guys in omit deserve huge credit, and hopefully they can continue making a run in the tournament. They play Toronto, I think, tomorrow, which is potentially going to be a mega game. As Mamba says, told them I'm ready for that get back. I'm always going to back it up. So, you know, love to see these new personalities coming in. Hopefully these guys, after this, I mean, it's difficult to imagine that these guys, Craze, Mamba, hopefully Vivid and Mac as well, don't find themselves back in the league somehow next season. aBeZy finally did a tweet, and it's kind of crazy to think about, right? Because aBeZy, we talked about this a little while ago, he'd not tweeted in months. He tweeted that the Battle Beaver thing because he had to, but he didn't tweet till Champs, or since Champs. And then since then, he just says, you know what, pathetic end to the season, nothing to say at all. We get this from Ronnie, we'll come back to that in a second. Simp says, GG's omit, end of our tournament, embarrassing end to the year. Drazah says a similar thing, just pathetic out of me, on to next year, worst series ever. Absolute great, pathetic out of me, on to next year. Who knows what's going to happen? Is Drazah still going to be on FaZe? I don't know. It's pretty unlikely as it stands. And as Ronnie says, it's the end, right? Maybe this is the end of the trio. It's impossible to imagine. 95+% chance, 99% chance probably. This trio has to break it up in some form or another. And what does that mean for the league? You thought it was chaos when Octane retired, and Drazah, Kenny, and Envoy were all on the market and went to 3 different teams. I don't know what's going to happen with FaZe, but you know, a 2-man change is probably coming to this team. Where they go, where they look, what that means. I mean, look, at the end of the day, people are going to say, and for very understandable reasons, about the whole OpTic Simp thing, and saying, well, like, why would you get Simp when he just bombed out of the tournament to a Challengers team at a 0.85? And I get it, and this was a massive down year for Simp, but you know, he is still Simp at the end of the day, in there somewhere at the very least. Mac has a 1.4 to knock him out of the tournament. I mean, he's still FaZe's boogeyman after doing it on Surge all those times back in Vanguard. And certainly a couple of years ago, Mac always seemed to have their number, and that does not seem like it's going away. So that discussion can continue, but the reality is that Thieves or OpTic, whoever loses that series, there will be some questions going on there. Because, you know, some players are available, some players are maybe gettable, right? And I don't know where FaZe go from here. We'll talk about it more in the coming days, but today I just wanted to present basically what has happened and the major implications that that has. Just to quickly mention, because I'm just going to finish recording this video now and put it live as soon as this series ends, but 5 Fears are up 2-0 on Cloud9, and that'd be amazing if we get another Challengers team into the bracket play, especially because Fire is absolutely pissing for now. But very much interested to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.